Welcome to Soaring in Faith. I hope that this wind doesn't get too out of hand for me. I'm on a higher level and it's a little windy, and I do know that sometimes the wind picks up in the mic. So hopefully we can get through this without the wind interfering too much. But last week I shared with you about lights out, and I wanted to continue on with that topic. I had mentioned that there were two stories that I wanted to share with you. I was only able to share one last week. The other story I will go into today. That story involves me during my college days when I enrolled in college. I had mentioned in the weeks previous that I had very poor study habits. And so I had no intention on going to college after my career counselor in high school kind of turned me away and said that it was hopeless for me as far as college plans. He wasn't that bold, but basically he told me that there was nothing he could do to help me enter college because my grades were too low and my SAT and the ACT scores were too low. So I lost all hope for college. And when I became a mom right out of high school, I realized that I needed to do something to better myself for the sake of my child's future. And I ended up enrolling in college after a vocational course that I took and after working at a bank that really wasn't getting me any place. So I enrolled in college and I was accepted, and I started classes, and I would say maybe about a year into it, it started to hit me like a snowball. And by that, what I mean is my grades were plummeting. I couldn't keep up. I was trying to juggle single parenthood with studying and working and trying to take care of my baby. I had so many things. I mean, the list goes on. And even at one point during my college days, I was working a full-time job, a part-time job. I was doing work study to get money for my grant that was due to me from a grant that I had. Only if you do work study. It's like a program where you help out departments on campus. And I was attending school and being a mom. So my plate was always full. So I'm trying to survive, and my plate grew so full that I nearly failed out of college. In fact, I did. I ended up on probation. I remember having a few F's and a couple of D's. And for me, I was like, I'm going to keep going. Well, what happened was it came time for me to register for school, and I got this notification that I was not able to register. And I'm like, okay, what's going on? I went to the financial aid department and found out that I was ineligible to register because I was basically kicked out. They shut everything down. And in my mind, I'm like, shoot, that's okay. I'll just go ahead and apply for, some loans. I'll take some loans out and go to school. I don't need those grants. Well, due to my lack of experience and everything, I didn't realize that all of that was tied in together. The loans, the Pell Grants, all of it. So when I went to the financial aid department, I found out that I wasn't entitled to any of that. All of it was stopped. And if that stopped, my child care would stop too. Because I would lose a lot of grants, things like that. And I would also lose, my baby would lose a spot in daycare. So I asked the financial aid department what I needed to do. And this took 3 weeks into the semester for me to get this all worked out. 3 weeks, 3. So I waited in a long line back then, and they said, you need to appeal. And I'm like, what do I need to do to appeal? And they gave me this big packet and said, fill this out, answer the questions, turn it in. You have a deadline of this. And the appeal board will review it and determine whether or not, they'll approve for you to come through, approve my appeal. Okay. So I appealed it, waited about a week and a half or so, waited through this long line at financial aid, at the financial aid department, only to find out that my appeal was denied. And I was like, oh no, I have to survive with my baby. What can I do? And I could not leave that front, that I was at the front of the line. All these people were behind me, and I'm like, my ears went numb. You talk about lights out. Lights went out. And I stood there, and I was like, I need to know what other options I have. Like, I was not leaving that counter. And the lady was kind of short and said, there really isn't much that you can do. And I was like, there has to be something, because I have to keep going to school. I'm a single mom. This is all I have. And she said, well, you could apply one more time. You could appeal one more time. And I was like, I get a second chance? She said, you only get one more chance and that's it. Okay, I'll take that opportunity. So she gave me another packet, and she said, take this, fill it out, and write about why you feel they should allow you back into college. And I took that packet home, and I wrote, and I wrote, and I wrote. I must have had about 5 pages long of why I needed to stay in college. One being the fact that I was a single mom. I had no future planned out. I didn't know where I was going to go. I knew that I was in jeopardy of losing my housing. My child was in jeopardy of losing childcare. I was going to get kicked out of school. Like, I had no future. And I knew that if I failed, I failed my child. So I wrote and wrote and wrote. And I turned that paperwork in. And I waited, and that was suspense. By then, it was going on the 3rd week of me missing school. I was not allowed to attend classes. I was not allowed to buy my books. I just had to wait. And finally got word that they had approved my appeal. Now, I have to tell you that during that time that I appealed and I wrote, I stayed up late one night, put the baby to bed, and I stayed up late writing. And one thing I told them was, if you allow me to return to my classes and my field of study, I promise you, you'll never, ever have to worry about me again. I will get my GPA up so high that y'all, you don't have to worry about me. I will graduate with honors. Like, I was making all kinds of promises. And it wasn't like I didn't feel like I couldn't keep them. I just knew that it was time for me to get serious about my life. And I'm not saying that I wasn't serious, but I knew that I had to learn some new ways to survive with my baby. Because if I failed myself, it wasn't just about me. It was also failing for my son too. And I was not about to set him up for failure like that. Like, my whole world would crumble. It would be like yanking the rug from up under me. So yes, the second appeal was approved. I was allowed to return to school. My professors were not very lenient with me, not very understanding, but I explained to them that I wasn't able to get my Pell Grant approved, and that I needed to rush. And they were like, okay, you got to do this to catch up. You got to turn in this to catch up. I still needed to buy my books. Some of the books were bought out. Somehow, by the grace of God, I was able to make it through those, like, that time that was lost, and catch up. And it was rough. It was rough, but I made it. I made it through, and finished off that semester. I stayed on top of my grades. I constantly was asking professors what percentage I had, and I was always averaging out my grades to figure out what I needed to do to raise my GPA up to where it needed to be by the end of that semester, because I was on a probationary status, and had I continued to fail, the door would have been shut for good. It was already almost shut on me. So, by the grace of God, I made it through, y'all, and that was the time when my lights were out, and I saw light at the end of the tunnel. I looked at my baby, and I knew that I wanted to have a promising future for him, much better than what I had for my own life as a child. And I knew I needed to just strap down and get more serious with things. So I made it through. And I want to share with you that I graduated with a GPA above a 3.0. It was a 3.3 to be exact with you. I kept my word. I was not messing around. I think I even stopped clubbing during those days because I was into hanging out. You know, I liked my social life. I didn't really like leaving my son behind, but I did like my social life, and I had a few friends, and we would go hang out and dance. I like to dance. But even around that time, I realized, you know what, I need to be present for my son. So I had even slowed up on going out. But I graduated from college. This woman who was young and barely made it out of high school with very poor study habits, graduated from college from MSU, Metropolitan State University, with a 3.3 GPA. I did have help from the time that I was accepted through that appeal program. I had help. I received help from Student Support Services, and his name was D. I actually had someone who stayed with me and walked alongside of me throughout to make sure that I was staying up to par with my grades and that I was doing my homework, and if I needed study time, anything I needed help with, he was right there. And we really connected. So I graduate. I got my first job. We're going to talk about this stuff too. I got my first job at a shelter for runaway and homeless youth. And till this day, I still keep in touch with the director of that program. He was the director of that program at the time. He's turned into like a mentor, and maybe he's a snowbird. What do I call him? He's a snowbird. So he's moved to Arizona, but he will be back. And I'm going to ask him if I can bring him on and just share a little bit with you. He's so awesome for me. I have some really cool people in my corner. But anyway, that's where I got my first job out of college. Worked a couple of years, and 3 years later, was it 3? Yes, a couple of years later, I'll say, I was contacted by Student Support Services and informed that I was nominated to become a Trio Achiever, or for a Trio Achiever Award. And what had happened was at the time I was in grad school. I had entered grad school. Eventually I'll talk about how I entered grad school, how I ended up attending grad school. I could share a little bit and just let you know that the job that I was doing after I graduated from college, I wasn't earning quite enough to survive as a single mom with a child, and I had to keep going. And so I enrolled in grad school to be able to afford putting food on my baby's table, or on the table for me and my baby to survive. So, and I'll go more into that. But in the meantime, I'm working at this little spot, and I think I worked there for a little bit, and then I transferred to a different spot. And by then I had enrolled in grad school and was contacted, like I said, by Student Support Services. And they knew that I was in grad school, and they said, you know what, we would like to nominate you for a Trio Achiever Award. It's TRIO Achiever Award, and I'll tell you the meaning of that. We'll go into this next week too. I'll share some more about Trio Achiever. But I got this award, and I was recognized at the state college for the state, and I was called to give my very first speech down at Metro. And then after I gave my speech, I was nominated for the regional award, and I was awarded the regional award, and I was flown out to Montana, and they set me up in a beautiful suite, and I stayed up all night writing my story to share with a room full of people. It was the first time I ever shared my personal story about perseverance and what it took for me to get through college. And I shared it in front of hundreds of people. And that was the first time I ever got a standing ovation for sharing my story. And it was such a blessing to them. It was a blessing to me. And then I was presented with this beautiful plaque. And I'm telling you, all the work that I put in to reach that one day in my life to show me that all of that hard work was not in vain, those lights came back on. So I share that with you to let you know that no matter how hard, and I say this week and week and week, every week, I'll just say, I say this week and week, time and time again, week after week, that no matter how discouraged you may become, how hard things may become, if you fail to fight for what you know you deserve, you lose. Every bit of what we go through, no one ever said it was going to be easy, but every bit of what we go through is worth the fight. If you have to fight, you fight to get what you want. Fight with your head. You don't have to physically fight, but fight with your mind. We can all become very powerful people with our mind if we just fight to become better people. Persevere. So I wanted to share that story with you. And I'm also going to take a chance. I want to sing a song, and I don't know how it's going to sound, and I'm not really trying to impress anyone, but a song comes to mind when I think about my scripture that I'm going to share with you at the end. And it's a song that I sing. I believe I know it's a song that we sang for the praise team when I was singing with the praise team. I don't think we sang it in choir, but it's you can do all things, okay? And it's a song by Elevation. I don't own the rights to the song, but I'm going to sing a little piece of it. And I'm going to drink some water real quick, because sometimes my voice gets a little raspy and it doesn't come out right. And if it doesn't come out right, I tried, but hold on. Okay. But basically the song is it's to encourage you that you can do all things, because we're not cut out to fail. You only fail if you don't try. So here we go. And I'm just going to sing a couple of words. I don't own the rights to this song, but if you want to hear it, look it up. Elevation sings it. It's Never Lost a Battle. You can do all things. You can do all things but fail, 'cause you've never lost a battle. No, you've never lost a battle. I know, you never will. Check that song out. It's a beautiful song, and I'm telling you, when we rock when we sing it at the church. It's one of my favorite songs. And with that, I want to leave you with the scripture. My scripture today is Philippians 4:13. Now, this is my youngest son's favorite scripture, and I'm so impressed because when I was a little girl, I didn't have scriptures embedded in my heart. And as I got older, when I was in my early 20s, I was like, I want to learn some scriptures. And I eventually learned scriptures just by studying. If you want to learn, you got to study. I learned to start studying on my own. Just got into the Word, the Bible. So my son, just earlier in the week, was asking me, he said, Mom, why don't you share Philippians 4:13? That's my favorite scripture. And I was like, yeah, it is. And that's really cool that it is your favorite scripture. And so I'm going to share it with you all. And it just happens to be a coincidence based on what I've been covering, what I covered last week and what ties into this week, how it ties into this week, and how the scripture ties in with my topic. So Philippians 4:13 in the King James Version is, I can do all things through Christ, which strengthens me. I can do all things through Christ, which strengthens me. Never, never, never allow anyone to tell you you can't do anything, that you can't accomplish anything. You can accomplish whatever you put your mind to. You can accomplish whatever you put your mind to. Sometimes certain paths in our lives aren't meant for us, but I am a strong believer that you can do whatever you put your mind to. And don't get discouraged if things don't work out the way that you feel they should work out. Sometimes you're being protected from something. Okay? So I'm going to end it with that. Much love to you all. Thank you for joining me. I had to get out and get some recording done. This is a beautiful day. I think we got some snow coming up. So, I got to come out when I can. But anyway, God bless you all. Stay prayed up. I'll continue to pray for you all. You pray for me. And God bless you. Take care.